Now, typically, at this time of year, when you come to the beach, it's raining. So I need to get kitted up first before I head out onto Jacob's Ladder Beach. I've just been using this nice little beach hut which sits at the back edge of the beach. So lock my kit up in there and go down these few steps onto the shingle embankment. And the reason we've come to the coastline for this week's Open Country is because the Marine Bill is currently going through Parliament. As a nation, we understand the concept of creating special habitats in which creatures can thrive, but for some reason, that thinking seems to end when we come to the shoreline. But the Marine Bill is designed to change all that. James Chubb is a ranger with the East Devon Countryside Service. He and I are going to head down to the rock pools which are gradually emerging from the receding tide. So we'll head down there, James. We're going to try and see if we can catch something for our lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hadn't thought that rock pools would be a place that you could gather food from, but you're going to prove otherwise.
Well, I hope so, yes. There's some absolutely delicious little morsels living in amongst here. Look out for these dog whelk shells trapped in amongst the mussel bed, because dog whelks are the predator of the blue mussel, much more effective than you or I as a mussel eater. And as the tide comes in, they just slide over the mussel bed like this with a little proboscis sticking out the front, smelling their way around. And when they get into this is their absolute nirvana. You know, they're covered, surrounded by their food. Ah, here we go. See that perfect little hole?
Pinhole.
As if it's, yeah, either
Hold
been
it up to
drilled
the
out
light,
with
you
a
can see
pin
it.
or drilled out with a Black & Decker bit. And that's exactly what's happened. The dog whelk, on the end of its proboscis, has got a tongue called a radula, which it's covered in spiny little teeth, and it licks its way through the shell of the blue mussel, injects a load of digestive juices, the blue mussel turns into a sort of soup inside, and then it sucks it back up, and that's how it feeds. You'd think that the blue mussels were helpless to defend themselves, being tied to the rocks like they are, but if they smell a dog whelk amongst the colony, what they do is start producing these threads. You can see the silky little lines.
Yes.
Those are called byssus threads, and they start producing those in sort of overload and end up casting the threads over the shell of the dog whelk, tying it into the mussel bed. And the 3 or 4 mussels around it might be sacrificed, but then the dog whelk can't move on and it eventually starves to death. So that's how they fight back. Right.
Okay, so that's the start of lunch.
Yes. We'll keep collecting those at different places, so not to make too much impact in one spot. But what I really want to do is get down to this seaward edge here and have a bit of a fish around with my net and see if I can catch some lovely big juicy prawns. Some tiny, tiny, tiny prawns. Far too small for us to eat, these little tiny ones here.
Okay, but we're in the right area, obviously.
Definitely.
They just look like little threads, really, not like prawns at all.
There's a little fish called a sea scorpion or a father lasher, and that's what the French call rascasse, and that's the base of the stockfish that are used for making bouillabaisse, and we get those all over here. If you go over to a French seafood market, you see those huge great bowls of soup de poisson and just loads and loads of tiny little bait fish that have been caught. Just going to jump over that way.
One great big stride and he's back onto the other side. I'll have to go this way.
All these periwinkles around here are very edible.
There, I pulled one out, and are those
No, that's
inside?
It's just a little bit of mason worm stuck to it.
I know, but look at the great clusters of them. It just looks like lots of rabbit droppings, doesn't it?
Yes,
doesn't look terribly
less
nice.
appetising.
Yeah.
But these are collected in huge quantity and shipped over to Spain for the tapas market, where they're really popular out there. So
there's a few more.
you can have a little taste
Okay.
and see what the fuss is about.
Ah, we have the remains of a crab here. Look, the body shell, which you don't
Lovely.
often get to see, but look at this, ink blue.
Yes, and that's a sign that that's a velvet swimmer crab, which are very popular, again, eaten in France as part of a Breton seafood platter. They're really tasty, much more flavour than our big sort of brown crabs, but so much more fiddly. Also known as the devilfish because they've got bright red eyes. This one, being an empty shell, you can't make it out so much, but they've got...
Yeah, there's a little bit of redness in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well as the red eyes, they've got a fiery attitude as well. So you've got to be really careful when you pick them out because they take a finger off. Good as look at you.
Get it away. Look, there's its claw.
Yeah, and you can see the spiky claw, very heavily armoured, very sharp, very powerful.
Well, something's got to it before we did.
Yes. A lot of the dead crabs you see on the beach are actually empty skins, where they've shed their skin to grow bigger. So it looks like crab carnage, and actually it's just a sign that all the crabs are very healthy and busy getting fatter and growing.